Adorama TV presents Digital Photography One-on-One, where we answer your questions. Here's your host, Mark Wallace.
Hey everybody, I'm Mark Wallace. Welcome back to another episode of Digital Photography One-on-One. Well, this week we have a question from Lars in Denmark, and Lars said, I was wondering what rules apply when composing a portrait. Sometimes I see great portraits where part of the head is chopped off. So what are the rules for taking great portraits? Well, Lars, it's a great question, and so what we're going to do is we're going to go into the studio, and I'm going to start by showing you what not to do when taking portraits, and then we're going to focus on some things, specifically composition and cropping, so you get some ideas on what you should do when you're taking portraits. So let's get started and head over to the studio. All right, well, we're here in the studio, and this is Jess. She's going to help me out today, and what we're going to start with are some things that you should not do, the don'ts. And to do this, we're really keeping things simple, and we've just set this up on a plain white background. We've got this softbox, and so I'm just shooting basically composition and the cropping of each of these poses, and so we've ignored things like good lighting and all that kind of stuff. So really just pay attention in this video to the composition of each of these shots and where I'm cropping things, and we'll start by some of the things that you should not do. And specifically to the question, it was, how close can we chop off a person's head? Well, for a great shot, you can get really close to a model and get a good headshot. In fact, this shot here illustrates how we just shot a picture of Jess, and she looks great, even though the top of her head is chopped off. But one of the things that you don't want to do is chop off a person's head. So let's say that we have a shot where we have all of Jess's body, or maybe a portion of that. Well, you wouldn't want to just chop off the top of her head, because then that would look really wacky. In fact, I just took a picture, and here is what that looks like. And you can see that if you have the majority of a person's body in, chopping off the head looks like a total mistake, and it is. All right, in addition to chopping off people's heads, there are some rules about how you should not chop off people's limbs. And so here are the basic rules. Well, you want to make sure that you don't crop somebody below the elbow. So it's okay to crop somebody right above the elbow, but below it looks all wacky. The other thing that you want to make sure that you don't do is if you're getting a 3/4 shot, make sure you crop above the knees. So right above the knees. If you crop below the knees, what will happen is it'll look like your model's feet are stuck in the mud. And so you can see in these pictures, we've intentionally cropped Jess incorrectly. You can see her elbows look like they've been chopped off, her hand is missing, and her feet look like they've been stuck in the mud. And so those are absolutely ways not to crop somebody. Now, the proper way to do that, again, is to crop right above the elbows. And so here's an example of that, and it looks much better. You can see the before shot where Jess looks like she's got some weird amputation, and the second shot where it looks a little bit more natural. And the same is true of the 3/4 shots. Here is a shot of Jess with her body cropped right above the knees, and that looks pretty good. And then here's one where I just shot her with the crop right below the knees and one right above the ankles, and those look horrible. So make sure that you crop above the knees and above the elbows, and you're going to get some great results. All right, well, two more things that we need to make sure that we don't do, and that is to crop too tightly on our model's face. And so I said earlier it's okay to get a nice tight headshot and chop off a little bit of somebody's head. Well, you don't want to chop off too much. And so the rule is don't get too close to the eyebrows, because that looks really wacky. And you can see with this headshot that I just took of Jess, it just does not look good to do that. Well, the other thing that you want to make sure you do not do, and that is to chop off somebody's ear. And that's really easy to do because they sort of go out of the frame, and it's something that you may not notice. So make sure that you look all around your frame when you're shooting, and make sure you keep those ears in, because you don't want to maim your model. Well, there are two more things that you shouldn't do, and these are mistakes that are made all the time by professionals and amateurs alike, and they're so easy to make. I'm going to just show you how it happens. And so let's say we're going to do a model portfolio for Jess here, and I come over here, and she's got this really cool pose, and I love it, and I'm going to take a shot. And at first glance, that looks pretty good, but when we look closer at this, that shot is straight up her nose, and that is not flattering at all. So make sure you pay attention to make sure you're not shooting up somebody's nose. You'll be surprised at how many people do that on accident. So what I should do is, if I see that happening, just give some direction to the model. So please bring your chin down just a little bit. There you go, chin toward me. Beautiful. Then I'm going to get in nice and close and click. And now we have a shot that really works. Well, there's one other thing that happens a lot, and that is if your model turns a little bit too far from the camera, this back arm actually disappears and it doesn't look as good as it could. And so let me first take a shot here, and you can see that in this shot, well, only the front arm is visible, so it's a really easy fix. So just turn a little bit toward me. There you go, and pick up your left arm just a little bit. There you go, beautiful, just like that. And I'm going to bring this in just a hair, and yeah, now I like that much better, and it's a little bit more flattering than that first shot. Well, now that we know what not to do, let's talk about things that we should do. Well, there are a couple other things that I'd like to show you, and so I brought up this little step stool, and so I'll get to that in a second. But normally when you're shooting, your lens is about the same height as your subject's face, and that works pretty well. But you can really add some punch to a portrait by actually elevating your camera. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this ladder right here and bring it out. And I don't have to go very high here, just one step up, and then just look right at me. Good. And that looks a little bit better. Now the other thing I can do is to start twisting my camera. And so by twisting my camera, I give my photos just a little bit of extra punch. And you can see what it looks like with a straight on and a twisted shot. And you can see by twisting that camera, it looks a little bit better. Now the other thing that I like to do, a lot of photographers don't like to do this, and it's sort of controversial, but I think it's worth it. And that is to show your subject the pictures as you're shooting, and so they know exactly what you're shooting, and they know exactly what things are looking like, and I think it gives them a little bit of confidence, so I highly encourage you to do that. Well, the last thing that you need to make sure that you do is to communicate with your subject, because sometimes you have to have them move a little bit or turn away or toward the camera or put their chin up or down. So make sure that you're communicating. You're not just sitting there shooting away in silence. And also remember, sometimes if you say move your right arm, well, they'll get it backwards. And so make sure you use a lot of nonverbal communication. So say, move over here this way or turn this way. And so that will help them out quite a bit. Well, I had a lot of fun showing you how to take some portraits and what not to do. Now take these rules and bend them and mold them and make a style that's all your own. But these are some of the things that you should pay attention to when you're taking portraits. Well, thanks, Lars, for the great question. And remember, if you're like Lars and have a question for us, you can send it to me at askmark@adorama.com, and I might just use it on an upcoming episode. And don't forget to subscribe. If you like these videos, click the subscribe button so you make sure you get every single episode and you don't miss a single thing. Well, thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see you again next week.
This episode is brought to you by Adorama TV. Visit the Adorama Learning Center, where you'll find photography tips and techniques, links to the gear used in this episode, and related videos. For all the latest photography, video, and computer gear, visit adorama.com. And the next time you're in New York City, visit our store, located on 18th Street between 5th and 6th Avenue.
Hard to clap. Go, go. Left foot. I accept you.